Welcome to the Hormone Hub, your go-to source for the conversations every woman in her 40s and 50s needs to have. I'm your host, Kylie Pinwell, your nutritionist helping you navigate your way through perimenopause, menopause and beyond so you can say goodbye to the endless fatigue, unexplained weight gain, hot flushes, PMS, mood changes and more that come on this hormonal roller coaster. If you missed the memo or think this is only for women of a certain age, ladies, it's time to think again. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of my latest episodes, which are released every week. Share it with your friends, your sweaty sisters. The more we talk, the more we help each other. Hello, and welcome back to the Hormone Hub. I am your host, Kylie Pinwell, and today we are delving into the topic of emotional eating. So whether that looks like stress eating, binge eating, just overeating, we are going to have a look at, what are some of the causes, like why, we do it. And I'll give you the heads up, it's not a lack of willpower. We're going to have a look at some of the triggers. And most importantly, we're going to have a look at some strategies to help you overcome it. So let's jump in. So why do we emotionally eat? Okay, so we use food as a coping mechanism for dealing with, a lot of our negative emotions. And often it's a form of, self-soothing or, seeking comfort. So think about it. When we were babies, we cried and our mothers fed us. So it's a very kind of intrinsic trigger, that feeding and, eating food or receiving food. When we, fell over and we scraped our knee, we might have been given a biscuit or a cookie or, something like that. So, if you behave yourself, you'll get an ice cream at the end of the day. So, you can see that we've had that reward system, reinforced pretty much our whole lives. Oh, it's Friday afternoon, I'm going to have a glass of wine. So it's our brain's way, when we consume certain foods, we get that little release of dopamine. And, we've also, when we've got, psychological things like stress going on, boredom going on, loneliness, anxiety, we're happy, we're sad, we're celebrating, we're commiserating, all of these range of emotions link us back to, emotional eating and food. And also too, I think so much of our relationship with food has been dictated to us by the diet industry. So certain foods have been, deemed as bad and we shouldn't eat them. And then, there's a whole range of guilt and shame associated with that. So, we sort of see behaviors like sneak eating or, guilt eating or, eating in secret and things like that. So, emotional eating, has a huge range of, what it can mean to different people. Now, there's a lot of triggers for emotional eating. So, obviously stress and, chronic stress for a lot of us, can lead to increased cravings and emotional eating. So we've got that blood sugar, that chronic stress, that chronically elevated cortisol, which, sort of drives our blood sugar. So, there's a physiological side to that as well. When we're experiencing negative emotions, so things like, feeling sad, feeling angry, feeling frustrated, it might trigger that desire for sort of what we call comfort foods. Boredom is a massive trigger. Mindless eating, can distract us from that monotony or that lack of stimulation. I know that, procrastination is a big trigger for me. I will, if I'm putting something off that I want to do, and because I work at home, I can find myself, if I'm not in the right frame of mind, standing in front of the fridge looking at, okay, well, what can I eat now? Loneliness for a lot of people can be a trigger. So using food to fill a void or, compensate for what's missing in a relationship or that lack of social connection. fatigue. So certainly there's a huge link between, poor sleep and that lack of sleep and it can disrupt our hunger regulating hormones and increase that emotional eating. So when we're not having a good night's sleep or if we haven't had a good night's sleep and this is a regular thing, it messes with our production of leptin, which is our, hormone that gives us that feeling of fullness. So certainly, fatigue is a big trigger for emotional eating. And also, the environment. So when we're in a surrounding that reminds us of, pleasurable food experiences, it can be a big trigger for a lot of us. Now, like I said earlier, it's not necessarily a lack of willpower, which is why we're, overeating or emotional eating. So certainly, we can look at hormonal imbalances. So fluctuations in our hormones, fluctuations in our cycle can trigger emotional eating in some people. So, we're also to that conditioning of, oh, look, my period's due, so therefore I must have chocolate. I had my daughter turn around and tell me, I asked her if there was anything she needed. She goes, oh, yes, I need chocolate. And I was like, oh, my God, she, hasn't had a cycle long enough to know that, but, obviously she's heard along the way that, oh, you get to eat chocolate when you get your period. Like I said, lack of sleep is another one. So that's another sort of physiological driver for overeating. So when, we sort of have that sleep deprivation, we're feeling tired, we tend to go for, those higher carb, those sugary sort of foods to lift up our blood sugar. So our insulin is impacted, and then also those hunger regulating hormones, particularly leptin is, triggered when we're not sleeping well, or it's suppressed rather. So, we miss that cue from our body to tell us that we're actually full, and that's why we tend to overeat. Certainly, nutrient deficiencies, and I'm just going to say undereating in that as well. So when we're not getting enough nutrients, into our body, when we're not getting enough food into our body, this can contribute to, cravings and emotional eating as well, because our body is driving us to want those nutrients. And then low serotonin levels. So serotonin is one of our neurotransmitters, and it's responsible for, the way we regulate our mood. And this can definitely influence our food choices. Again, we tend to go for those carbier type of foods, sugary sort of foods, because we want to lift up. We want that dopamine hit. We're looking for that, or our body's looking for that. So that low serotonin can certainly be a driver to, go and eat. All right, so there's some of the reasons. So hopefully, I want you to sort of think about, it's not just willpower. It's not just that you're not strong enough, that you're on the wrong diet, that you need to exercise more. If we look at, some of the physiological drivers of why we might be overeating, it certainly helps then address the behaviours. But if we have a look at, there's sort of 10 strategies that I use with my clients to help overcome emotional eating. And this is something that we talk about all the time in the Well Balanced Woman program, because it is such a common thing for a lot of women. And when we hit our, mid-40s, hit our 50s, hit our 60s, and the ability to lose weight and the ability to maintain our weight does get a bit harder, with that. We are more susceptible to insulin. We are more susceptible to cortisol. So, when we sort of employ different strategies and different coping mechanisms, it certainly helps us combat that emotional eating without relying on willpower. This Hormone Hub episode is sponsored by the Well Balanced Woman. If you've been on a hormonal roller coaster, feeling bloated, your digestion isn't the best, and you're sick and tired of feeling lethargic with your weight creeping up, then this is the right program for you. I'm right there with you across the 12 weeks to hold your hand, and I'll give you a loving kick up the bum if you need it. The Well Balanced Woman is your personalised 4-phase program created to help you regain your energy, balance your hormones and fire up your metabolism so you get the results you're after. The link with all the details is on our show notes or over at kyliepinwell.com/well-balanced-woman. Okay, so first up, mindful eating. So being aware and paying attention to what we're actually eating. It's easy to eat a block of chocolate while you're sitting on the lounge watching TV. It's easy to eat a bag of chips while you're driving and you're in traffic and you're not paying attention to what you eat. So, be present with your food, sort of sit down, and it doesn't matter what you're eating, whether that food is deemed good, bad, or indifferent. I want you to pay attention to what you're eating. Slow it down, chew, taste your food, savor each bite, and then just that presence and awareness will help reduce those cravings. The second thing is having an emotional awareness. So identify what's the emotion and actually acknowledge the emotion before we turn to food. So are we lonely? Are we bored? Are we, actually hungry? What is the trigger there? So, tuning into how we're feeling can certainly help. Number 3 is developing a toolbox of healthier ways to deal with those emotions. So whether it's, talking to a friend, whether it's getting yourself outside and moving your body, whether it's, sitting down, being still, being quiet, and giving yourself, making yourself a nice cup of tea and just taking some deep breaths. So we want to sort of pull in those other tools. Managing your stress. So stress is a huge driver for emotional eating. So we want to, learn to regulate our stress and learn to regulate that cortisol response. So this is going to help, on so many levels. It's going to help our digestion, our sleep, our, emotional well-being, as well as the ability to either lose weight or store weight. But when we, bring in things like meditation, bring in things like deep breathing exercises, creating a hobby, is another great one as well. So, so many women I ask, do you have any hobbies that are just for you? And I get a blank look. It's like, oh no, I haven't had hobbies since my 20s, So quite often if you can't think of, what you would like to do, maybe think about, things that you used to enjoy. Was it dancing? Was it, painting? Was it writing poetry? It doesn't matter what it was, but, think about, what's something that you really like to do? It could be cooking, could be, a number of different things. Number 5 is creating a supportive environment. So create a kitchen full of food that you want to eat. So stock your kitchen with lots of delicious, nutritious foods. Take away the things that you don't want to eat. Now, if you want to avoid certain foods, don't put them in the trolley and don't put them in your house. Okay, that's the simplest way. And often if we see foods, that's a trigger, that's what we want to eat. So if we see that packet of chips, if we see that bottle of wine, if we see that piece of cake, if you don't want to eat it, don't have it in the fridge. Now, on what we are eating, so number 6 is to build and, make sure you're getting the foundations of nutrition right. So we want to, have a balanced meal. So that's going to keep our blood sugar level stable. It's going to keep our mood stable, and it's going to keep our energy stable as well. So we want to make sure that we're having, a variety of whole foods at each meal. So this includes lean proteins, it includes complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, lots of fiber in the form of fruit and veggies, brown rice, sweet potato, all of those things. And this is going to help stabilize out our blood sugar. And then we're not going to have that dip later on, which is going to start that trigger off that we want something to eat. Having regular meals and snacks is a huge one. Now, if we've got consistent eating patterns, it's going to prevent sort of that extreme hunger and overeating. And I see it particularly with my nighttime snackers and my nighttime eaters. They, don't eat all morning, and the first meal that they have is at lunchtime, and then they're looking for food, to fill the gap at nighttime. So if you are a nighttime snacker, think about where your meals are during the day. Are you starting off the day with a good balanced meal full of protein, fiber, healthy fats, and then having that again at lunchtime, having that again at dinner time. And that will make an enormous difference to, how you snack or don't snack at the end of the day. Okay, sleep is the next one. So prioritizing sleep and those regular sleep habits, going to bed at the same time, nice, cool, quiet room, no phones in your bedroom. So we want to make sure that we're having, good quality, restful sleep, because that's going to help with those emotions of tiredness, boredom, frustration, the next day. And it's going to help regulate that blood sugar as well. Number 9 is, if you need some help, please reach out. We're specialists in this. This is what we do all day, every day, is we help support women, to change their behaviors when it comes to, habits that we want to change. And number 10 is, oh my gosh, be kind to yourself. All right. So, if the inevitable slip up happens, be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, move on, let it go. A piece of cake is not going to ruin your life. Okay. So we can just let it go, So yeah, above all, be kind to yourself. So as you can see, emotional eating, it's a complex issue. It's influenced by, lots of different factors. And it's when we understand the reasons behind this emotional eating and then we implement strategies to combat this, it's where we can develop a healthier relationship with food and find alternative ways to manage our emotions, without sort of then feeling guilty. We want a healthier relationship with food. We want to create a healthier relationship with our body as well. It is a journey. It's important to be patient, be kind to ourselves along the way. And, if you need some support, this is what we do. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. You can head on over to the show notes at kyliepinwell.com/podcast, where you'll find all the links, and I have a little bonus surprise waiting for you. Before we go, it would mean the world to me if you head on over to your favourite podcasts channel, subscribe and leave a review. Make sure to screenshot it, DM it to me so I can thank you personally. Then stay tuned for next week's episode. Can't wait to see you then.